Wish that would happen. That would be great. That's great TV.
Celeste, they're about to go live for you in the stream.
Great. Thank you. And I'm sure the mayor will.
We're good to go. So in 45 seconds, you should see it, Celeste.
Okay, thanks. And then we'll wait for the mayor to call the meeting to order at 7:30. Okay, we are live streaming. So any folks that are watching will be starting in about 2 minutes. We're also live streaming on YouTube. If you have any problems with this feed, you can click the button at the top of the page that says YouTube live stream and look at it there. You can also see us on FCC TV, Cox Channel 11, RCN2, and Verizon 35. We covered all the bases.
All right, I've got 7:30 and would like to call the meeting to order on Monday, July 12th, 2021. We're delighted you all are with us this evening. Madam Clerk, would you like to read the virtual meeting notice?
Yes, thank you. This meeting has been posted and is being held pursuant to and in compliance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3708.2, and state and local legislation adopted to allow for continued government operation during the COVID-19 declared emergency. All participating members of City Council are present at this meeting through electronic means, and members of the public are welcome to view the meeting on the city's website, on YouTube, or on FCC TV, on Cox Channel 11, RCN2, and Verizon 35. Public comments are being accepted virtually by those who signed up to speak in advance and those who sent public comments to cityclerk@fallschurchva.gov. Public comments are always accepted at that address. That's cityclerk@fallschurchva.gov, and they are sent directly to City Council. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And would you like to call roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Ms. Hardy?
Here.
Mr. Lickenhouse?
Here.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
And Mayor Tarter.
Here.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. And there is the flag. And so it's time to have the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all, wherever you might be, stand and join me, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Let us now go to receipt of public comments. Madam Clerk?
Yeah. Yes, we do have some written comments this evening. If I can make it big enough where I can actually read it. Oh, there we go. Jeffrey Cowan Jr. wrote, with concerns about the noise and congestion on Westmoreland Road since a food truck has located at the intersection with South Washington Street. He said he understood that the business would be moving into a building at that intersection and asked if parking restrictions could be enacted on West Westmoreland if the restaurant did not have sufficient parking. Ryan Oklowitz of 455 South Maple Avenue asked that a time limit be set in the 2-hour parking area surrounding his building so that cars could park overnight. Hans Miller outlined concerns he has with the Founders Row 2 project and other development along Broad Street and recommended that development applications be looked at holistically. And the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation sent an update on their work and asked for financial and public messaging support for their historic mural district project. They stated that financial support would also help with the continued development and success of the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation's work as Falls Church's major Black cultural organization. And that's what we have. And we do have one person signed up for public comment, general public comment tonight, and that is Ryan Oklowitz. And he is here. I see him.
All right. Well, welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Mayor Charter, and thank you to the council for their public service, especially during these difficult times. We are all fortunate to live in such a caring city. I able to go ahead with my request here today, or should I wait for questions, or how do we proceed?
Please go ahead.
Awesome. All right. So Ryan Oklowitz, I'm a tenant at 455 Tinner Hill. As you guys know, and I think everybody on the council knows, Tinner Hill is blessed with some great dining and nightlife now, with Pizzeria Orso, El Patron Bar, and Falls Church Distillers. This is a neighborhood now that people come out to enjoy the culture, the history, food, nightlife, of course, libations with friends. My main motivation to speak here today is when first moving to Tinner Hill, there was absolutely no enforcement whatsoever in the Tinner Hill neighborhood. And at the beginning of the pandemic, sudden a patrol vehicle with the public aid with tinted windows coming through the neighborhood and issuing tickets to everybody. Tickets close to thousands of dollars worth of tickets. We've monitored and discussed it with the aid. It's a lot of tax revenue, which is great for the city. I'm not to that. I am opposed to is the inability for patrons at these establishments where you can drink and consume alcohol and become intoxicated. There is really no option for parking in this area for fear of being ticketed or towed. So along the 400 block of we have nondescript 2-hour parking signs. It says 2 hours only, which means that the or parking enforcement will come in and ticket 24/7 whenever they want. And I'm a bit concerned because everywhere around our neighborhood, there's probably only a 40-yard stretch between highway and South Maple. It's a whole nother topic. But where folks can go
Ryan,
park and feel comfortable.
Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You might want to just shut your video off and we might be able to hear you a little bit better. I'm sorry. You started breaking up there. Sorry to interrupt.
Apologize. Hopefully this helps with the bandwidth consumption here. But anyway, I am looking to see those parking signs from just being these non-parking signs to being, let's say, 2-hour during the business hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And you know, what the time frame is can be negotiated. I don't care. But that amount of tickets come from a, you know, in a car that's safety aided. There's a bit of that might be causing less public safety because they're drinking. We're not fully taking off the table any excuse they can make for driving intoxicated. I know my neighbor, you know, you want to leave your car overnight, that option, you just pick it up in the next morning. Currently, we do not have the ability to do that. I'm hoping to petition the council and any other residents and parties of Falls Church have a concern for this to make a change just to, I think it's about 6 hours to chance to be from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 2-hour only parking. I think that would solve a lot of our concerns around folks leaving after consuming a little bit too much alcohol. I will leave it there and thank you for an advance for your comment.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for taking the time to be with us tonight. I think your comments are a little bit choppy, but I think we all got the gist of your requests and your concerns. And I guess I would ask the city manager to take a look into that, and if possible, give council a little bit of information back. But it sounds like you want to have this 2-hour parking only during business hours and not overnight. And so I think your request is noted. And maybe the city manager can, give the city council and yourself some feedback, not necessarily at this meeting, but maybe at a later time, once you set a time to consider it. So
I've emailed everybody on the council as well, and hopefully we can bring a resolution to this issue. Again, I'm not looking for free parking or access to free parking. I really understand the need to collect some revenue for the city, particularly after a tough year. But the nondescript 2-hour only signs, it could cause a public safety issue as people look at the neighborhood and say, you know what, I'm going to get towed or ticketed if I leave my car here. You know, I'm just going to go and try. And hopefully that can be acknowledged and we can bring a resolution to it.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us. Madam Clerk, is there any other public comment tonight?
Not at this time. Thank you, sir.
All right. Can we move on to council requests? Are there any council requests? Mr. Lichtenhouse?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Well, just to follow up on Ryan's comments about the parking, was that parking restriction required as part of the approval of Tenor Hill, or has it always existed there since Pearson Square's redevelopment?
If that question's to me, I'm not 100%.
No, I'm sorry. That was to Wyatt. It was to Wyatt.
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting my phone. Councilmember Lichtenhouse, in the site plan, that is the parking that is along the street there is intended for the commercial businesses. And as a general principle, we try very hard to work with the multifamily developer and then the future property manager to ensure that residents of that building do have parking inside the building and do not park out in the commercial areas or in nearby neighborhoods. And we typically do try to both work with the developer to accomplish that, but also have parking regulations on the street so that it can be enforced as well. But we did receive the email today. We will look into it and we'll get back with the city council on some initial staff thoughts and then get back with Mr. Oglethorpe, who's written on this matter.
Correct. Well, I would say, yeah, I can certainly understand and am sympathetic to his request, especially with the growing number of businesses down there. I think what we'll need to take a look at the turnover that is expected for those parking spaces every 2 hours is to make sure that folks aren't camping out in front of businesses while they're open. But along that stretch of South Washington, I don't know how many businesses are open other than Pizzeria Orzo, and of course Falls Church Distillers after what is that, 6 p.m., which was the request. So yeah, I would just ask for a follow-up, and I know you promised that. I appreciate it. Ryan, thanks for reaching out. The public safety aspect of folks that want to leave cars and take an Uber home is an important one, and parking is at a premium. The other thing to consider is making sure that folks aren't avoiding paying for parking in the building where they live because they want to park on the street all day. So I know we'll get to the bottom of it and get back to you, Ryan, but I appreciate the comments. Wyatt, another request. Do we have an update on the Fellows property? My term is up here at the end of the year, and I would certainly love to see some progress and a plan on the Fellows property. That is certainly near and dear to my heart. So is there anything that we need to do, or we can talk about, or we can move forward with the plan to get that moving?
Let me check on the status. I know that the Rec and Parks Advisory Board is gathering input from the community on uses of the park and design ideas for the park, but let me get the latest to council on that.
Okay, yeah, please do. I'm very interested to see us getting a plan going forward. And I know that there was some discussion about possibly with Charles and Urban Forestry about doing something for Dan Z there too. I don't know where that stands, but I'm eager to get something moving and something formalized and finalized by the end of the year, if at all possible. So thanks, Wyatt.
Ms. Hiscott?
Thank you. I wanted to give a shout out to the city staff and the communications department on the focus, adding a section on environmental sustainability. That was our one of our goals through that board and commission. And so that happened last week, and we hope to continue that on a monthly basis to be able to share that with our extended community in hopes that they'll help us make an impact on a lot of the climate change and environmental issues that we're facing in Falls Church and elsewhere. And to that point, and looking forward to next Monday's meeting where we have planned a work session with our ESD folks, experts on a variety of topics. And we're meeting on Thursday night and kind of honing in on what council would like to learn more about and from them. So if you other council members have ideas or specific topics you'd like to have addressed by ESC next Monday and want to help us narrow the focus, because there are obviously many, many topics to address, please feel free to send me a line between now and Thursday night. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Connolly? You are muted.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor Tarter. My question is related to one of the other emails that came in from a community member regarding the food truck and the traffic at the corner of Westmoreland and South Washington Street. And I'm wondering, Mr. Shields, if there's, I remember that we did pass some kind of ordinance related to food trucks and that they needed to have permits to operate in the city. And also I understand the concern because that is a very quiet street that doesn't have a lot of traffic on it. And if people are going up and down that street looking for parking, that really does change the neighborhood. So I'm just wondering if you can direct whatever department is in charge to look into that, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Snyder.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, directed to Wyatt, if we could have a report back on the Tinner Hill murals. That was an email that we also got. I think we're covering all the emails we received, indicating that we take them all seriously and we want to see alternatives for action. So could we have a report back to the council on the murals and what we've committed to and what's needed to move forward?
Yes, we can do that, and at your next work session on July 19th, we can provide a report on that and other budget amendment items that are pending.
Thank you.
All right. Any other council requests, or should we move on to the report of the city manager? Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor Tarter, members of council. And can I ask first, can you all hear me okay? I know that a number of folks are breaking up. I just wanted to check my audio. Okay, just a few things to report on. One, I do want to note the storm that occurred in the city and in our region on July 1st. It was a a major event. We certainly have had worse in the last 3 to 4 years, but it certainly was impactful for residents and businesses in the city. Over the course of the storm, we had about 1,600 of our customers of Dominion Power who were off the grid and out of power due to trees falling across power lines. We had isolated flooding, particularly in the Lincoln Avenue area, South Virginia, and East Jefferson Street areas. We did have multiple road closures, including a prolonged road closure on Roosevelt Street near Tuckahoe due to utility wires down in the street. We have done an after-action review just to understand exactly why that delay occurred and working with our utility companies, and we will endeavor to have that type of a situation not occur in the future in partnership with our utility companies. I do want to thank DVP staff and our operations crews, as well as our police department and OCOM for their work throughout the night of July 1, and I appreciate all the patience that residents had as we recovered from that storm event. The second thing I want to report on, staff is doing initial brainstorming and vetting of strategic options for the use of American Rescue Plan dollars. And as mentioned just a moment ago, I plan to come to council at your work session on the 19th with the product of that work and to get council direction and feedback on that. Then we will then turn around into what we anticipate would be a budget amendment possibly for immediate needs under ARPA and the reserving probably the lion's share of the ARPA dollars for further community work and prioritization for a later budget amendment. But we do think that there are some immediate needs that we would want to engage with the city council and possibly addressing with those federal dollars in the near term. The city council then, two requests from council I just want to report back on. A meeting with Fairfax Health. We have been working to schedule a briefing for the city council with Fairfax Health staff. And due to scheduling issues, we're currently scheduling that for a regular meeting on August 9th. We'd be joined by Colin Brody, who has been with the city council for briefings in the past, but he will provide an update on vaccination efforts, as well as emerging concerns with the Delta variant and other issues related to the COVID pandemic. And lastly, there was a question at a recent council meeting about ranked choice voting. And the General Assembly has enacted legislation to allow localities to move to ranked choice voting. It's a fairly complex topic, and I did engage with the registrar about what that means. And I might suggest that we have a work session with the registrar so he could brief the council directly on what it means and kind of how it could possibly work if the city council were so interested. It's a bit more complicated than I can probably accurately report in my report, but I did want to offer that meeting. That's all I have to report tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for the city manager? Okay, let's move. Oh, Letty, I'm sorry, did you have a comment or a council request earlier?
I did, thank you. Unrelated to your report tonight, Wyatt, but I think you sent an email on options for undergrounding that pole outside the library. Do we have resolution on that, or do you need more from us?
Well, I did get some emails back from council. At issue, just for the public's understanding, is that there is a pole in front of the library that during the design phase, we considered options on moving it. Dominion Power does have a work order from the city to move it, and the location that they have found that would work is on the other side of Virginia, North Virginia. There are issues with that location in terms of impacts on the neighbor there, as well as additional guy wires and other smaller impacts. So I did get some feedback from council members suggesting that probably the preference would be to leave it where it is, even though I think no one wants it there in the long term. It is in the way of pedestrians, and it's very close to the entrance of the high school. With the Park Avenue Great Streets project, which is has been approved for funding through the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. I want to thank Councilmember Snyder and others for their work on that. That is a project where those dollars will be available in 2024 for what will be a very major effort to get the utility wires underground, and as well as a whole host of pedestrian and other safety improvements for Park Avenue.
All right. Any other requests or comments for Mr. Shields? Let's go ahead and move on to business on the agenda then, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have a second reading and public hearing on TO 21-11, ordinance to amend Ordinance 2026 regarding the budget of expenditures and revenues appropriating funds for fiscal year 2022 for the general fund.
All right. Is Ms. Bawa on the line? Is she going to help with this?
Mayor Tarter, I will handle this item, and Cindy Mester is also working this issue closely, so she's available to answer any questions about it as well. What the request is to have an amendment to the FY22 budget, transfer $1,935,000 from capital reserves to the Economic Development Authority for the used exclusively for the purchase and preservation of 2 market rate affordable apartment buildings in the city. Those apartment buildings have a total of 8 units that would be kept as affordable housing and would also be ultimately part of the EDA's longer term land banking strategy. The dollars would come from, yes.
I was just going to say, before we get too far into this, I wonder if Vice Mayor Connolly has a disclosure she'd like to read or provide.
I do, Mayor Tarter. Thank you. I make the following statement before City Council's discussion of TO 21-11, an amendment to the FY22 General Fund budget. I am an employee of the Falls Church City School Board and am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who may be affected by these matters. I can participate in them fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
All right, thank you. I have one to read as well. I make the following statement before City Council's consideration of TO 21-11 amendment to the FY 2022 budget. My wife is an employee of the Falls Church City School Board, and therefore I'm a member of a group of 3 or more persons who may be affected by this matter. I can participate in it fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Sorry, Mr. Shields, for that interruption, but please continue with your presentation.
By all means. The EDA did meet at its regular meeting last week, and they did discuss this acquisition, and they did pass a motion to authorize staff to proceed with negotiating and putting in an offer for this property. There is no guarantee that the EDA ultimately will be successful in obtaining this property, but this budget amendment would create the circumstances where they would have a chance to compete for it. That is the report that I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. The matter is before the City Council for second reading tonight.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shields. Any questions or comments? Mr. Snyder?
Thank you very much. So let me ask you a couple questions. I know there have been some discussions, I think, with nonprofits and others regarding this. Do you have any comment on that, Mr. Shields?
I will just say briefly that there that as part of the Amazon housing grant process, we have been in discussions with nonprofit affordable housing partners about working with them for the preservation and operation of affordable housing in the city, and using those grant funds to help acquire properties. We have not reached terms with any nonprofit entity, and that will be a subject for further discussion with the City Council on the merits and on the terms of such a partnership. Tonight, what we're basically asking for is that we could secure the property with capital reserve funds, and then that creates the opportunity possibly to have these properties be part of an eventual relationship with a nonprofit partner. But that would be subject to a later decision by the city council.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple additional questions.
Sure.
I know the proposal tonight is to take the money out of the capital reserve fund. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit of the history of the fund, where it is now and where it will be after this action.
Yes. So the capital reserve fund largely was established through proceeds from the sale of the water system. And then it was also grown through a tax increase that the council adopted in order to set the stage for being able to afford the high school. The capital reserve currently has at the end of the fiscal year has a balance of 10 million in it, just over 10 million. And that capital reserve has been used as a buffer for the possibility that due to economic difficulties or other reasons, the economic development up at West Falls will be delayed or canceled or whatever the case may be, those capital reserves then would be used as a buffer in that event. It would provide us about 24 months worth of debt service coverage for the high school in rough terms. So drawing down those capital reserves is, for other reasons, is a decision not to be taken lightly. It is our intention to restore this approximate $2 million funding for affordable housing back to capital reserves by the end of this fiscal year, after we've obtained financing and potentially entered into a partnership with a nonprofit partner. The partnership with a nonprofit partner is not the crucial issue in terms of getting the money back into the capital reserves. Getting financing through Virginia Housing or another suitable financing vehicle for affordable housing is, in my view, the most crucial aspect of getting our cash back out so it could go back into capital reserves. If we are successful in acquiring these two properties, then there will be 4 in this area, part of this land banking strategy, and one of those is already owned free and clear by the city. Through those 4 properties, we think we would be able to get our capital back out of these properties.
Let me follow up. Are there other sources of replenishment of the capital reserve to get us back to the 10 million if the arrangement doesn't work with the nonprofit?
So there are additional areas that will be replenishing the fund this year, we believe. And so one of those is the approximately $1.8 million voluntary concession from Founders Row that goes into the capital reserves fund for schools. And then the second is the next lease payment from Falls Church Gateway Partners, which is payable to the city no later than April 30th of this current fiscal year. And that is the other very significant capital replenishment for the capital reserve fund.
So let me ask you one more question. How much is in the fund now, right now, as opposed to expected payments in the future?
Let me get back with you on that number. I know you're asking a very precise question, and the finance officer is away and not at this meeting. So let me get that number to you in writing.
Okay, that's what I have for right now. I may have additional questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hardy?
Thank you. So first, I appreciate staff kind of working on this interim solution until we get permanent financing for this. But while we are at second reading, I wanted to reiterate my previous request is that Before too many other units come on the market, let's make sure we come up with a broader strategic plan of how we envision this area to work. I know that in the comprehensive plan, we are envisioning that this has future affordable housing. So I think making sure we have a more thoughtful plan going forward will help us with future acquisitions as they come up.
And I think that in terms of that topic, that is where we think having the nonprofit partner under agreement with the city will help us with these acquisitions in the future. To date, these two properties came on the market a bit early for us. We're working hard to get those arrangements in place with the use of those Amazon grant dollars, but these properties came on the market before we were able to get those grant dollars. They've been awarded to the city, but not yet received. At least last year's have, and then the application deadline for the next round has been postponed to September. So it has been at this point just a problem of timing.
All right, Mr. Shields, did you have additional presentation to make, or is that's it?
That is it. That is the one item in this budget amendment.
Mr. Snyder?
Let me go back to your most recent conversation a minute, Mr. City Manager. If the grant funds that we've applied for become available, would they be available then to, in essence, cover the cost of these units, allowing us to put money back into the capital reserve fund? I think you may be on mute.
Yes, thank you. So that is the intention. And in our past discussions on this, we do have to just note that a couple things have to fall into place for that to happen, including, Virginia Housing has shown a willingness to be a financial partner for financing these acquisitions. But they have been very busy with pandemic-related responses, and so we have not yet done a financing with them. So that is something that we think will be effective, but it has not yet been consummated. And then again, the dimensions of a potential partnership with a nonprofit entity, that has not been fully fleshed out. So there is some uncertainty to this, and I think we just need to be upfront about that and straightforward about that. We do think that there is a good likelihood, however, that we will be able to get the financing and potentially have an agreement with a nonprofit partner that is attractive and good for the city, and that the city council would support, that would free this capital back up so it could be returned to capital reserves. But neither of those things are in place today.
Now, I understand one other thing is the Amazon Reach grant, another round of those. Is that right?
That is correct.
And could that money be used to replenish the capital fund, in essence, retroactively pay for this action that we're taking tonight?
So in terms of retroactivity, Ms. Mester, what is your view of that? Is that a possibility?
Yes, it is a possibility. For year 3, we're purposely setting this up as the acquisition strike fund so we could acquire units like this that could be preserved for affordable housing. And so we would write the grant to include these two. That's a $5 million grant that we want to leverage with other financing resources, and also a possible Northern Virginia Regional Commission grant out there that we haven't had a chance to mention tonight. But it certainly would be inclusive of these two and future ones, as we're proposing the grant.
Thank you.
All right, any other comment? Is there any
Mayor,
public comment?
Mayor, if I could just add, the grant deadline is September 30th, and then after that, due deliberation from Virginia Housing, we'll hear back.
All right, Madam Clerk, is there any public comment on this matter?
We received no public comment on this.
All right. Unless there's any other comment from council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt.
Mayor, I'd like to move.
I'm sorry. So Phil, why don't you go ahead and finish what you're doing, then we'll recognize Mr. Snyder.
I move to adopt TF 21-11.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Who's that, Ms. Hiscott?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Snyder, did you have additional comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make this comment that while I like the idea of adding to our additional affordable housing, I am concerned about removing money from this capital fund, which was very hard earned and fundamentally designated for the schools. On the other hand, it would appear that there are multiple ways by which these funds can be returned in the fairly near future. And the ultimate fail-safe is that the properties could be put back on the market if there were no other way, and the capital reserve fund were to be diminished. So for that reason, I'm willing to support this on the particular facts of this, but this cannot be a precedent for dipping into the capital reserve fund in the absence of multiple ways, likely ways to recover the money in a short time frame. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hiscott.
I agree with Councilman Snyder, and I just wanted to add, and I think I accidentally spoke out loud when I didn't have it muted, that I too support it, and we feel strongly that we have the fail-safe of always being able to sell the properties back should we be in a position that we needed that capital for other purposes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any additional comment? Clerk?
Would you like me to call the vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Mr. Lichtenhouse?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
And Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. Will you call the next item, please?
I will. I believe that are there three items that should be called together? May I ask the city attorney?
That's my understanding. City attorney is certainly welcome to.
All right, I will call these three items together, and these are first readings. TR 20-29, resolution to grant special exception entitlement amendment for a mixed-use development project with a building height up to 15 stories on approximately 9.77 acres of land located at 7124 Leesburg Pike, portions of real property code numbers 51-221-006 and 007 on application by Falls Church Gateway Partners. Then we have TR 20-30, resolution to grant special exception site plan section 48-488.B3 for a mixed-use development project with a building height up to 15 stories on approximately 8.82 acres of land located at 7124 Leesburg Pike, portions of real property code numbers 51-221-006 and 007 on application by Falls Church Gateway Partners, and TO 21-10, ordinance to create and establish the West Falls Community Development Authority.
All right, thank you. Mr. Shields?
Excuse me, this is the city attorney. You said the clerk read real property code numbers 51 221006 and 007. The report has 007 and 008. And I'm not sure, maybe Ms. Aubrey knows what the correct numbers are, but we should get the correct numbers in the record.
This is Carly. Yeah, they should be 007 and 008. Those were
Okay.
post-plat recordation.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that got in the record before we went
I'll
on.
make sure
Go ahead.
that's noted in the minutes
right.
and updated in the titles. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. What I would recommend for these three items is that we do provide a staff report tonight, and the developer is here with us tonight as well and has information that they would like to share with the city council. It is the advice, and I'm speaking for the city attorney, but there is an opportunity again to receive advice from legal counsel on the actions that are being requested by the city council. And so there has been a motion prepared if the council would like to receive that advice from the city attorney prior to taking consideration on these items. I would note that for each of these items that are before the council tonight, the request is for a referral out to the Planning Commission on the land use items. And for the CDA, the request is to grant first reading. If the council does approve those requests, these would be scheduled then for August 9th to come back for final consideration. So this is a step in the process tonight. Nonetheless, we do think it would be potentially beneficial for the city council to receive some legal advice prior to taking these actions. If that is the way to proceed, then we would start with a staff report from Ms. Aubrey, and then we would turn it over to the development team for information that they would like to share on this request. So let me turn it first to Ms. Aubrey.
Good evening, council. Before I get into the staff report, just want to provide a quick update. We did receive a new application submission on Friday, and that's been distributed for staff review and will be posted on the project's webpage within the next couple of days. This recent submission responds to comments on the third submission, as well as comments on the additional senior housing square footage. And it's anticipated this will be the submission that council reviews at the action hearing on August 9th. So since that happened posting, just wanted to provide that update. So in terms of the staff report, the city council is requested to refer a request to increase the gross square footage of the proposed senior housing building from the current maximum limit of 225,000 square feet to 260,000 square feet as part of the applications for the special exception entitlement amendment and the special exception site plan to the school board and the planning commission to review and provide recommendations to council. And the primary purpose of the additional square footage is to provide for a higher quantity of smaller amenity spaces spread throughout the building. And this would allow for lockdowns to happen on a floor-by-floor basis in case of a pandemic or similar scenario, and would not restrict residents to their apartments. The additional square footage would result in an additional floor from 14 to 15 stories. However, the building would still meet the 15-story limitation set by the zoning code, as well as the approved July 8th, 2019 special exception entitlement. The estimated unit count is 215, which is below the SCE approved unit count of 225. And staff comments on this submission are provided in attachment 2. No significant issues were identified as part of this review. And as indicated in the SESP Phase 1 application, the architectural details and other site plan specific items for the senior housing block will be reviewed under a separate SESP application, which is anticipated to be submitted in a few months. In terms of the ADU, or the Affordable Dwelling Unit Program, The staff report provides what the baseline program is, which is 6% of total units, including the independent living units in the senior housing building, with rents at 60% of the area median income, and the same unit mix is found in the market rate units. The voluntary concessions provide for flexibility to those factors, as well as a cash in lieu option for some or all of the units. Page 6 of the staff report includes an ADU unit mix program at the baseline 6% at 60% AMI, as well as a staff recommended alternative unit mix, providing rents at a range of AMIs with a total of 4% ADUs in the multifamily section. Staff is recommending that the city accept staff's recommendation based on the data presented in pages 6 through 8 of the staff report. And this data was collected as part of the comprehensive plan updates of the demographics and housing chapters, as well as the housing's ADU program waitlist. For the senior housing component, staff recommends that the city accept cash in lieu for the units. This cash in lieu would be an annual credit of approximately $228,000 plus 3% annual escalation. And this would provide the city with the flexibility to provide a continuum of care as opposed to only independent living units. In terms of the voluntary concessions, the staff report provides a summary of the key VCs that have been under discussion, and that starts on page 8. And the proposed amendment to the senior housing square footage and the ADU program are the remaining outstanding items for the VCs. The remainder of the staff report includes a staff analysis of the current application materials, and the timing section of the report includes an anticipated schedule that includes the referral tonight, a school board meeting tomorrow night, planning commission meeting on August 4th, and a CC final action anticipated for August 9th. So in conclusion, for staff report, staff recommends that council adopt the proposed motion to refer the requested increase in square footage for the senior housing component to the planning commission and the school board. And we do have Laura Schoenfeld with Hoffman, as well as some teams for the senior housing, team members for the senior housing component here. They have the presentation that they've provided last time with, I'm not sure if they have any updates, but they can provide that and or we can answer questions.
Yeah,
all right. Thank you very much for the information. I would just ask the developer if there is any new information you'd like to provide. Please keep your presentation to that. Otherwise, we've heard this, on several occasions. So I'm sure if there's any updates you'd like to give us, please do so. Any new information, we'd be delighted to hear it, but welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Laura Schoenfeld from Hoffman and Associates. We don't have any new information at this point. We could just do a 30-second flip through to remind everybody of the great images we showed a couple of weeks ago. Cindy, if you want to just very quickly go through this. Oh, that was very fast, a little too fast. Just reminding everybody of the precedent images that we had, and then we can go to the next page. And then the view from the ground level. Again, this is adjacent to the D parking garage and the A apartments, and then across the commons from the condo. We want to flip to the next one. So just giving you a little sense of scale and really how the space is going to work, and that it still speaks the similar language of our other buildings, but also differentiates itself and has an active retail band at the ground. And I think we just have one more. And this kind of shows just how the different pieces stack on top of each other. So we have the amenity space for everyone, and then amenity also spread out throughout the building, memory care, assisted living, and then the independent living is on the highest floors. So just to remind everybody of where we are on the design of this. So I'm happy to answer questions on this or any of the other pieces that Carly just talked about.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff or the developer? All right. Is there any public comment on this, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay, we have had, as you heard from the city manager, the notion of having a closed session and receiving additional advice from our counsel. I do have a motion that I can read if people are interested in going in a closed session. I guess I would just ask my colleagues if in fact they'd like to have the closed session.
Yes.
I would support that.
Okay, sounds like there is support for a motion, so I'm going to go ahead and read a motion. Upon a motion made by council member
Hardy.
Hiscott.
Hart, seconded by council member
Hiscott.
Hiscott, and passed by a vote of city council. Council went in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A8 for consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Issues related to the West End property. Council member Vice Mayor Connolly,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Lichtenhouse,
Yes.
Ms. Hiscott,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yeah.
and Mr. Tartar, yes. All right, so Mr. Shields, are we going to go ahead and pull our cameras down and go into closed session for a period now? And can someone give us notice when all the cameras are down and the like to the public?
I think that the clerk was going to create a breakout group so that everybody else can stay on the call and not get shut out.
Mayor, you're good to go. Back in open session.
All right. Well, welcome back.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I haven't gotten confirmation on this end.
Okay.
Sorry.
45 seconds.
We don't want to miss the important part.
Mayor, you're good to go. Back in open.
Okay, we're ready to go. Thank you.
All right, we are back, and we are going to start by coming out of closed session technically and with a certification. Upon a motion made by Council Member
Hardy.
Hardy and seconded by Council Member
Snyder.
Snyder, and passed by a vote of City Council reconvened in open session. Vice Mayor Connolly.
Yes.
Mr. Duncan.
Yes.
Ms. Hardy.
Yes.
Mr. Lichtenhouse.
Yes.
Ms. Hiscott.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
And David Tartar, yes. Here's our certification. Upon a motion made by Council Member Connolly, seconded by Council Member
Hiscott.
and passed upon affirmative roll call vote in open session, it was certified that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session or meeting by the body. Vice Mayor Connolly.
Yes.
Mr. Duncan.
Yes.
Ms. Hardy.
Yes.
Mr. Lichtenhouse.
Yes.
Ms. Hiscott.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yeah.
And Dave Tartar, yes. All right, so we are back in open session. Does anyone want to make a motion, or is there any further conversation or discussion about the matter that was on the table before we went into closed session? Anyone have any comments or questions, either for the developer or for staff, or just comments in general about how to proceed?
Dave, I do.
We
I've
have
got
a
my hand
motion.
up. I don't know if you can see that.
Excuse me?
I do. I've got my hand up. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see it.
sorry about that. Yeah, I
That's okay.
didn't see that. Mr.
No,
Lichtenhouse?
Yeah, sure. No, just a couple comments. One, as much as I want to move this project forward, I simply am not comfortable with the fact that we have not formalized and formally executed an agreement with our neighbors, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not going to vote to move this forward. I want to get everything resolved and finalized before we move anything forward. And I think that is a critical step to make sure that this project is successful. So I'm not going to be voting to move this forward at first reading, but it has been made clear, and I'm certainly hopeful that we will have all these issues resolved in the next couple of weeks, so we can put this back on the agenda and move it forward to get things back on track. But we've just got some. I still feel like we've got some significant gaps that we need to cover here before we make that happen.
All right. Other comments people want to make? Does someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, let other people talk. I'll make a motion after other people talk. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to second what Mr. Lichtenhouse said. I think, we're reaching a point with the county, which is a good point, but my understanding is they're to act tomorrow night. Supervisors, I would like to send the signal that, we're mindful of them wanting to have the time to act and discuss this and act. And so for that reason alone, I would prefer that we arrange our schedule to follow the Board of Supervisors, number one. Number two, I'd like to understand more about the value of the additional square footage that we're contemplating granting to the partners for the senior building. I'm supportive of an extra story on that building. It does seem that there's financial value attached to that, because if they don't have that extra story, they're going to have to reconfigure the internals of that building to have fewer units. So it seems obvious that there's value to that. I'm not sure what that value is, and I feel as if the city should benefit to some degree, to some amount, if we grant that additional story. I would like more time for those negotiations to occur, and for a number to come back to us at the earliest possible convenience.
Okay, other comments from council members? Ms. Conley?
I share Mr. Duncan and Mr. Lickenhouse's concern. However, I think that it's important that we keep this project moving forward. This is first reading, and we know that there's plenty of opportunity between first reading and second reading to fix the things that are concerning to all of us. So my hope is that as Mr. Shields continues to speak with our developer partners and Ms. McCoskey continues to work with Fairfax County, that we will be able to resolve all of those things. So I do think we need to move this forward tonight, and but not stop talking about it until we get to our final vote. And hopefully the things that are concerning to us will be resolved in the next month.
Ms. Hardy?
Thank you. So like Ross and Phil, as much as I want to support this, I think we have too many outstanding issues. I think between affordable housing and wanting to continue to be good neighbors with Fairfax County, I'm disappointed we haven't made more progress. So I can't support this right now, but I'm hopeful that in the coming weeks we will get there.
All right. Other comments from other folks? Mr. Snyder, Ms. Hiscott, I don't know if either one of you have any comments you'd like to add. It's okay if you don't.
I do. I'll defer to Debbie Hiscott if she wanted to make a comment.
I wanted to state my agreement with what has been said by Ross and Letty and Phil, and as a matter of fact, Mary Beth, but I am too of the belief that we can move forward and be working this issue simultaneously so that we can continue the process, but we still have high expectations of where we'll go between now and our next discussion of this. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Snyder?
So it's clear that there are a number of issues with this project at this point. We've spent a lot of time. I know our staff has spent a lot of time negotiating, and yet those issues remain out there unresolved with the developer. I've made it clear from the beginning that I preferred another proposal to this one. I strongly objected to the use of the force majeure clause, the renegotiations. So under these circumstances, I'm willing to give this one more shot to see if it's going to work. I'm quite prepared, if we move forward tonight, to say that if these things are not resolved on August 9, the vote just shifted from 4 in favor and 3 opposed to 3 in favor and 4 opposed. That's how serious I believe we are. And I firmly believe that we can come out of this with a better situation than we have now. So I'm willing to give it one last shot. And so I'll either move or support moving forward on this. But I can't say any more clearly than I'm saying now. We need more from the developer, more cooperation on a host of issues than we've seen so far. Thank you.
All right, so I will also
Mayor Tarter,
support. Yes.
Am I allowed to speak as the developer before you vote?
No, this is with the council now.
Okay.
Unless you've got something that you've got that's very brief, but this is now with council. So I guess I would go ahead.
I just wanted to note that we have done our absolute utmost to cooperate with the city. We have had extensive negotiations on a daily basis and on ADUs, and had come to an agreement with the staff again, which is why there was a positive recommendation tonight to vote. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about the work that we are doing as a development team to compromise, to come to an agreement. We've done extensive work. I also want to note that a delay in the vote tonight is going to put our financing and closing in, particularly our closing in December, in potential jeopardy. So
got it.
we just want to make sure that
so,
was
all right, thank you for your comments. I think we're well aware of the discussions that have been ongoing and the work that's occurred. I think you're hearing from my colleagues that they're not satisfied with the status of where things are right now, whether not necessarily the effort that's gone into it, but the status of negotiations at the present time as to things such as the value of the 35,000 square feet of additional density and other issues that you've heard about, ADUs and the like. And so you're hearing from my colleagues that we would like additional work to occur and additional conversation to occur to resolve outstanding issues, irrespective of what you may have heard as part of the staff recommendation, which is to just merely advance this to boards and commissions. So I think we need to be clear on what the recommendation is as well. But I will vote to move this forward as well. But I do share the concerns of my colleagues and would ask that the developer and staff continue the conversations that have occurred to date with the idea of resolving any outstanding issues in the next week or so this can move forward fully. And I also would like to note that we as a council are most deferential to our friends in Fairfax County and want to make sure that we're working together collaboratively to resolve and to work together, which we are doing now, and look forward to completing those conversations with Fairfax County as well. So with that, do we have a motion that's on the table?
Mr. Mayor, I'm willing to make the motion. I would want the city attorney to phrase the motion exactly right because it's a bit unclear from the materials. So, city attorney, do you want to phrase the motion for me? Okay, well, proposed motion, I move to refer a request to increase the gross square footage of the senior housing building from the current maximum limit of 225,000 gross square feet to 260,000 gross square feet as part of TR 20-29 and TR 20-30 to the School Board and Planning Commission to review and provide recommendations to City Council.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Vice Mayor Connolly is the second. Additional comment from council? Is there any public comment, Madam Clerk?
No, there is not.
All right, would you go ahead and call the roll call vote, please?
Sure. Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Ms. Hardy?
No.
Mr. Lickenhouse?
No.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-3. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's keep moving then. Let's take a look. Let me just pull the agenda up here. Can you put the agenda back on the screen?
We're on to TO 21-10, the ordinance to create and establish the West Falls Community Development Authority.
All right. Mr. Shields, any staff comments on that?
Thank you, Mayor Tarter, members of council. We have given a number of briefings to the community and to the council on the Community Development Authority, and so we won't do so again tonight. The request tonight is to grant first reading to an ordinance that would create a Community Development Authority. It would be in the area of the West Falls project. It would be an overlay of that development district. It would have the authority then to have a special assessment that would pay for debt service for bonds that would be used for infrastructure that are to be installed in that district itself. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Cheryl McCoskey has been working also with outside legal counsel on this item, and she's available to answer any questions as well.
All right. Any questions or comments from council? Do we have a motion anyone would like to make?
Mr. Mayor, I move to grant first reading to TO 21-10, schedule public hearing and second reading for August 9, 2021, and advertise the same according to law.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Hiscott on the second. Is there any public comment, Madam Clerk?
No, there is not.
All right. Any comment from council?
Yeah, Dave, I got a comment. I'm going to vote no on this too, not because I'm not supportive of the CDA, but again, I think it is incredibly important for us to get all these issues resolved before we signal that we're moving anything forward. And that includes issues that my fellow council members have mentioned, but most importantly to me, getting this Fairfax County issue resolved. So I'm going to be voting no on this one, simply to remain consistent with my prior vote to keep the project and its decisions packaged as a whole.
Additional comments? All right, Madam Clerk.
I agree with Mr.
I'm sorry, Mr. Duncan.
Just wanted to say I agree with Mr. Lichtenhouse.
Any additional comments, further comments? Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
No.
Ms. Hardy,
No.
Mr. Lichtenhouse,
No.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yeah,
Mayor Tarter.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-3. Thank you, council.
All right. Let's move on to the agenda. Looks like there is no consent items tonight. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, let's move on. Is there any business not on the agenda or any council member requests or committee reports and the like? Okay. Is there anything
Mr.
else?
Mayor,
Anyone? Excuse me?
Is our mayor's meeting on Wednesday of this week, or are we?
I don't know. Do you guys feel that's necessary?
Just let me know. I'm probably going to be traveling that day, so just let me know.
I may as well. I'm not sure exactly my plans, frankly. All right, why don't we talk offline about that with the idea that maybe it might be canceled. Anything else anyone would like to discuss?
I move to adjourn.
I think that's a great plan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Everyone have a great evening and rest of the week.
You too.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
council.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Bye-bye.
Travel safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Uh,
Good night.
Bye.
Safe travels.
Maybe it might be canceled. Anything else anyone would like to discuss?
I move to adjourn.
I think that's a great plan. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Everyone have a great evening and rest of the week.
You too.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Good night. Travel.
Thank you.
Everybody.